because the papers that papers I've submitted were helpful.
This is going to be on the BBC, so this is, you know, the whole world is going to see this.
This is a panorama exposure. Paper that Richard writing 400 funding applications.
Google Drive is now, for PC, is now backup and sync from Google. So we use the software now, which updates it. What did you just that? Use Google Drive? That's fine. Okay, I'm going to assume that this is what I'm looking into. This could be.
We're currently making a huge profit from the last recording of the last evaluation session, so here in that one too. Made like £10,000 already.
You send it to you being trained or something? Like Bible.
Lots of good blackmail material.
This is the website for the conference.
You saw that update that I gave you?
Yes, that's all in here. That's this.
Oh, nice. Great, great.
Then uploaded to the server because for some reason I couldn't access it. I'm going to see what I can do now.
That's great. It's so much better because the last one was really bad. Thank you for doing that.
Sorry, make sure the most recent version.
Now, I did say, I told Rich like to make a video.
Yep, so what's videos for each example? So, yeah, sorry.
I don't know. What we did this time to make it a little bit more structured is we've isolated each feature we want to discuss, and we created a demo video that tries to convince you guys that this is useful, like this is how we think it can be used and for what and so on.
And is this also just in case it hasn't got internet connection?
Yeah, well, yes, in case the
So you still
software
have to look at
breaks.
PDFs.
In case the software breaks, you always need the backup videos as well. It's,
Yeah.
You just don't, it's, you know, sometimes software crashes and
You don't
stuff
have
like that.
internet connection.
You have an internet connection.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll stop. Sorry, Rich.
Okay, so basically, we had this paper. The previous paper was, it was very much, the way it was structured was sort of, we created, you know, this, remember the high order brushing where you click through and maybe place these brushes on. And the general feedback, it was actually very positive about the paper, but it was the evaluation section that, yeah, as we said, it needs to be structured better. It needs to be just a bit more of it, because it was, the way we wrote it was very much as how we did the feedback section. We put your quotes in, we sort of went from thing to thing. Actually, we had a lot of examples in there where we sat and thought, well, what is that, or what does that mean, or what's possibly this, and we had a good discussion about it.
Is that because you couldn't understand our accents? Is that what did they actually say?
And
Let's make it up.
but yeah, but so what we've done now is that we've broken down the evaluation section, we've broken down each individual feature and what you've said about that, and then within the paper we've gone through and taken examples from your data set and said, well, actually we've used these in this real world data set to sort of discover this, or now we can see this. The first one, so what's the first one on the list? Example one is the, it's a higher order brushing in general. So this is, I mean, this isn't going to be new to you. In general.
Well, if I can't remember what we did tonight. I'm sure it isn't.
I've slept since then.
So in general, it's just this idea that we can apply these higher order brushes and select. So currently, if I pause this video, this is, it's a parallel coordinate, start time, end time, all the durations there, customer reference score, net promoter score. We've coloured this by the total duration, total call duration. So actually, if I go back to the beginning of the video, you can see. So obviously, this bit here total call duration is obviously very dense around the opening hours. This is sort of the way
So
you can
remember
see.
again, the colours are intensity, are they?
Yeah, the intensity. So you can see the call duration here. So the red ones here are sort of 45-minute calls, and down to middle here is obviously going to be sort of 20 minutes. And then here, very blue is going to be 0 minutes. So you can see sort of this between start time and end time exactly how that all falls. So we're going to apply brushes here roughly throughout the main bulk of the day, so where all the calls happen. IVR duration, so this is distribution as well. You can see how calls are distributed. This is sort of, it falls on both sides. You can see that the density is a lot higher here than it is at the top. Obviously, the density here is a lot higher. So if we apply these brushes, generally sort of the last half of the day we're busy, and then the sort of the general bulk of IVR times. But then we take high wait duration, so these are all people who wait in the queue for a while, and then we're brushing here now very low down on the agent duration axis. So these cover people who are zero duration, as well as sort of just a few seconds. So the calls in focus now are people who have really spent almost no time at all speaking to an agent. It can almost be considered an abandoned call if you speak for only sort of 10 seconds. There's very little information you can get there. So what's interesting, obviously, there are some high hold duration times. People who have spoken for seconds, placed on hold, and then been on hold for 10 minutes or so. And with quite a high total duration, which is interesting. All the duration is spent in the wait time as well as the IVR time. So this is sort of one of the things we can do. It's sort of one of the features we mentioned in the paper, just to be able to brush in very small quantities. To, I mean, obviously you would be able to find this data in your data set through SQL queries, but it's just a quick way of accessing abandoned calls through this new way of just brushing very low on the duration axis. So it's just demonstrating how quickly you can use higher order brushing. So that's the first example we have there. Can you record it, Bob?
Yeah, on
on
the camera. Yeah, so we think that one of our ideas is that you guys have missed some abandoned calls. So what you as far as I understand, you count abandoned calls when you don't reach an agent. It could be possible to reach an agent, be connected to an agent for 1 second, and then hang up. And we would still call that an abandoned call, for example.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't class that as an abandoned call, and it wouldn't be flagged as one. But that isn't to say that that doesn't occur in the data, and that's an anomaly in the data. It's an error in the data we produce. So it could help highlight that sort of.
Well, it could just be a short call, which is the same outcome for the customer, but it's just happened at a different stage. Right? The agent might have hung up rather than the customer.
Okay.
So this is a very fuzzy area. From the duration of 0 agent time to say 10 or 15 seconds is very fuzzy.
It's usually falls into the category of performance issue for the agent because it's classified as a short call, which indicates the agent probably did. It's usually pegged with the agent as being the problem area to say the agent probably did something.
It can be. I mean, it could also be somebody that's been sat on the phone for a little while waiting to get answered. They get answered by an agent, and all of a sudden the doorbell rings, they're waiting for a parcel, they go to the door, dump the call, or they're on the mobile phone, they lose the signal. Could be all sorts of things like that as well, could be a lot of things.
Yeah, well, they could have decided, I am going to hang up, and they're in the process of hanging up.
Yeah. Just as it
And
gets
then
answered.
the agent decides, well, maybe
So
better just to pick up.
Does this have virtual queue calls? And I think it does, doesn't it?
So
this is
Vodafone data.
Yeah. If it is, then it might be virtual holding, which is effectively they're offered an option to wait, and their place in the queue is held, and then when they get to the front of the queue, it calls them back. It might be that it calls them back, and then they weren't available to answer.
Interesting. So how does that look in the data then? Will that be a low call duration? Will that be like?
I'd imagine there would be some sort of flag in the data somewhere, wouldn't there? In the IVR data somewhere that identifies it as a virtual hold. But I'm not sure how much of it was in the data set.
And does that count as the wait duration then? So a high wait duration, so say it's an hour, if they call you back
What-
an hour later,
So
would
the
that
wait
count?
duration is queue time.
Yeah, queue time, yeah.
Yeah, that could explain high queue time. But then when they're placing the queue as number one, and because it effectively calls them back, the customer hangs up at that point, but their place is almost held by a
yeah.
dummy call.
I did that with Amazon the other day and it was really good.
And then when the place is number one, that calls them back just ahead of the agent answering the call. But if like Paul says, they decides to go out and they're not available at that point, then it might get, it will. I don't know how it would look in terms of data, but I'm sure it would have at least rung the agent.
Just looking at those ones with the long hold time as well, that can be an agent behavioural thing where they just don't want to speak to the customer for whatever reason. It's nearly home time or whatever, and so the second the call comes through, they hit hold, and in some instances the customer just hears music while they're waiting in the queue, then it sort of pauses for a second, and the same music comes back, so they don't realise they're on hold. They still think they're in the queue, and of course eventually they'll get fed up and either abandon, or eventually the agent might, once they've had the rest, take the call off hold and answer it as if it's just come to them. So
Sneaky.
that kind of thing can happen, and where you've got short agent duration but long hold duration could be an explanation for that.
That's interesting.
I think where this comes back to, and I guess this is the part of the feedback, is the context of this is we don't know.
Yeah.
So, but what you've done is you've highlighted things that need further investigation. So, I think every example we've just give could be a reason why, and I'm sure there's probably all of those calls at some point fall into one of those categories. But what you'd want to do at this point is then take those calls out as an export almost, and then do something with them. So a bit like our customer journey visualization, you might transfer that across, or you might just export them and just go and have a look in more detail what actually happened in the events to know for certain what the reason was. Because like I say, it could be there's actually some sort of, it could be that our data's wrong.
I think it's
what we
the
wanna
point
know.
where you'd switch to a detailed record view, isn't it? And
Yeah.
you'd say, right, give me the 100 calls that are there, or 20 calls, however many it is,
Yeah.
and look at the actual raw
And
data.
And that's the thing I think you'd want to do with this is, because you've, just remind me again, on agent duration, you've obviously started at 0, I think.
Yeah.
But with the top interval, what is that? What is that? Is that like a couple of seconds, is it?
Yes, so actually, because this is the video, we've got added a feature in on the actual software, I probably should have clicked it, where you can actually see the upper and lower bands.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's only going to be probably 20 seconds. 30 seconds.
Is it?
Do you get that if you hover over the filter
Yeah, so if you
yeah.
hover over now, that's...
Because that, I don't know, can you put that on permanently as a label as well?
Yeah, you can add that in permanently.
Because that's the thing, is obviously from this you want to know
Exactly
what
the
you've
numbers.
got. And then what I would probably do is like I say, I think there's lots of interesting calls there at the bottom. You probably want to then segment them first, so obviously you go to your next, you push probably one of the final axes. But yeah, I think for me what this does is I don't know whether this makes sense, but the way I thought of it last time was it's almost like a filtering process. Is using the data visually to effectively select the parameters you are or aren't interested in and the groupings, and then end up with a smaller data set which you're interested in investigating further. And it feels to me like it was an alternative to just going through and deselecting skills and groups and agents and not really having any reason to deselect certain agents or certain call types, other than you just look for something of interest. Whereas this kind of drives you intentionally towards something you are interested in, but acts as like a is that the word, filter?
Yes, definitely. Filtering and subset selection.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's where I thought that really had a value add, because with a lot of data and a lot of parameters to filter on, and not really knowing what you're filtering for or what the objective is, it kind of narrows you down to something of interest that warrants further investigation without really telling you what it is. It just kind of narrows the subset of data there. That was good. I think it was good. I'll let you carry on.
Yeah, okay. So this one now we're demonstrating sort of the translation where we can move these brushes up and down, sort of explore further. So I suppose your feedback there sort of does cover this, and because this is exploring and changing the parameters in which we see these things. So what we've done, we've pinned the bottom one, so that agent duration down the bottom, and the low agent duration we've pinned.
The red one, is it?
The red one, yeah, the red one down the
Alright,
bottom. So that's so we pin that so you can move the rest of the brushes to sort of see, you can move the wait time and the IV duration, sort of see how this pattern changes as we move it along the axis.
Yeah.
So it's sort of just this way of filtering. So move the sort of shapes. Yeah, so that's a similar concept. But as you said, it's this way of exploring the same pattern.
Do you think that translation, the vertical translation, could be useful?
The last feature of just moving things up and
Yes.
down.
So the first selection was focused around a special start interval, and then by moving it up and down, you change the start time interval, for example. And the
I think it's
time
useful.
interval.
For me, would be, I don't know whether this is possible, but I'd probably look to move one variable first. So I don't know whether you can.
Yes, you can move one. You have to move the whole brush.
Yeah, I think because really what you're trying to work out is which things actually, because obviously is the time of day important, does that change it? The other thing, I don't know whether it was doing it on the clip, but it felt like as you were moving up and down, did you have to, I don't know whether you were releasing it with the mouse, but did you have to click it in place then for the graphic to update?
Yes, so it'd be nice to have that live in real
I was gonna
time,
say,
but
for me that'd be much
processing,
more beneficial.
yeah,
Because I appreciate it. It makes a very nice feature, but it's probably very complicated to do. It's to dynamically kind of change it, because for me that's where visually you literally can just move it at a slow pace, and then you're just interpreting the data in a very quick way. Then you might see something you like, and then zero in on that. So I think if it's got the ability to handle more than one point, just change one variable. But I think that dynamic feature of moving things up and down, and if it's to respond straight away, I think that makes it much more useful because you can spot a pattern potentially.
Okay. Yes. It would be nice to have that sort of real-time feature to it, but it's because placing the brush is quite it takes a few seconds to do because it's got millions of polylines and lots of data. It's quite difficult to do.
You might come onto it later, so I might be jumping ahead. But what would be useful in the context of the same thing, if just trying to find issues, would be if you anchor one particular point, because that's interesting. We already filtered some of the other data sets, and what you might want to do is say, okay, you might want to almost create the type. I'm trying to think of the best way to explain it. You might want to anchor that point and then say, show me all the data that just relates within this range. Actually, I think you might just do that anyway. I was thinking, is there a way of almost saying, right, I found something of interest, now just expand some of the values to show me more of the same type of journey. It's a bit like clustering, I guess, of find me the things that look similar to this.
So, we talked about that last time. So it's similar, that's the thing, is that, so currently we have this sort of pattern, and it'll find everything within that pattern range. But do you mean by saying that pattern appearing anywhere in the data? So sort of...
I don't know, potentially, I mean, things, we don't really know what we're looking for. But once you find something that feels interesting, you might want to anchor in a couple of parameters with your clicker that made the red thing appear, technical terms for that. But then you might want to leave some other variables as slack variables, and then just say, show me everything that kind of has very similar patterns. But obviously some things have got the flexibility to be any time or any value on that range. And it might find you other journeys which meet certain criteria, but actually you wouldn't have found by just selecting certain ranges. Like I say, you might sit outside your range and kind of highlight that and say they look similar or they feel similar or it has similar characteristics. Something about what you've selected is repeated in terms of behaviour, and therefore it has a value that can be clustered against somewhere else.
Okay, that's an interesting concept. Yeah, so here...
Yeah, that's the idea actually. That's one of the reasons we have that feature.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Because so it kind of flows through that thing of I don't know anything, I found something of interest, and zero in on that. And then really what you're saying is, now go and find me the things that feel similar to this, but you have to really define the parameters to search against. Where you might say, find me other things. What do we say? It's just similar journeys of, but it's not really a journey in this, is it? Just find me things that have similar patterns. But that pattern might be, the shape looks the same, but it might be that actually they all have 3 touch points but each at exactly the same value. There could be lots of different reasons why it clusters, but just show me something I don't know, but it belongs in the same bucket for some reason.
It's interesting.
That's what that vertical movement almost does, isn't it? The way
Yeah.
so that you're moving your horse, you're looking for that particular dictative pattern.
Yeah, so that's the thing, because that's very specific to that one area. So you move up and down, you can see that pattern. It'd be nice to be able to see.
But the point is, you want
Yeah.
you almost want to maybe this is the extra thing. Then you want to defocus the things that don't meet it. So with that much your time start range, if you select that, if we focus on age and duration like we did before,
Mm.
and you say show me other things, there might be lots of things that happen throughout the whole day that all go through that pattern. So it's not really showing you anything. But what you probably want to do is filter out the things that don't.
Mm.
So you kind of get more focus on the things that do meet that criteria, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. So you haven't got as much noise in your data set.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it's doing, it's just defocusing the lines that don't meet that criteria
Yes.
to really show you things that do, because that might then generate, actually there's a cluster of things that happen all at 5 o'clock,
Mm.
which you might not see that if all of your parameters on start time is from start to finish.
Mm.
If that makes sense. You want to show the whole range,
Yeah.
but you want to focus on the lines and draw the lines that actually meet the criteria.
Yes. Yeah, so we also have that priority rendering feature where you can, I don't know if you remember, where if you do have a point that you want to focus on, you can draw those last. So even if you do have the other calls, the other polylines in the background, because currently, I mean, if you look at the start time, it's just a big blur. I mean, the whole thing is a big blur. But if you want to focus specifically on one point, it will show you what those all lines that hit that point specifically first, and it will draw those on top. So that's another thing. I'm going to have to show that in a minute, I think. So the next demonstration here is similar ones. What's this
What
one?
about the horizontal translation?
I think that's what this one is.
This one is, okay.
So yes, horizontal translation. So what we have here is it's a similar concept. So this was a tricky one in that. Yeah. So essentially, what we're going to do here, we're going to pin the start time and end time, so we can make sure that we're focusing on the same time frame here. And now we're going to translate this brush at the bottom across and sort of see the same pattern. So exploring at the beginning, you can see this is so high total duration and then low IVR and weight duration. We can see that corresponds quite heavily to high agent duration now. But if we move it over, we're now exploring high IVR duration and low weight and agent duration. So it's sort of exploring sort of the high ranges of one and the low of others. That's sort of the left right. It's sort of the sister of the previous one where you can translate up and down. It's just translating up and left and right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's the same sort of.
You're just taking, I didn't quite catch what was actually going on there. So the translation is you're just moving filters across the dimensions.
Yes, yes. So you're doing the same filter pattern. So here we're applying this filter pattern, and now we're going to click and drag. Yeah, we're going to click and drag and move this this brush. Pin those two, and then we're going to
So the inspiration behind the original selection is just exploring unusual calls.
yeah.
Maybe you just put it on loop. I like the loop feature is useful. So because we have these data distributions down here, we see, oh, there's all the calls are down here, they're all down here, and so on. So if we want to explore unusual calls, we can just select anything outside this range, outside the distribution, and then if we want to explore other outliers, we can just slide it across, right? And we're preserving the other properties because we have all those distributions included. That's the idea. It's a way to explore just the unusual, any unusual call.
So I think it would be useful with that functionality to have the ranges on those axes being the same,
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
so that it's more of a like for like. You know,
Yes.
that range is 42 minutes. That was 50.
Yes, that's true.
I'd almost want to scale it so that they match, particularly with our type of data.
Yeah, it's a bit like what you were just saying. If I don't know if you can play it again, we have like a data point there which is might be a third year data set there. When
Yeah.
you bring it
That's
through
right.
that one, a third year data set is very,
Yeah.
very, it's not there,
Mm.
it's down there.
Mhm.
So I think in that context it makes sense, because you're almost saying, just show me the I don't know, the bottom quartile of the data set, or the lowest value in a certain range.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what you're doing is you're not pulling across, because actually if you pull it across, you're not pulling across the low agent duration, even though visually it looks low,
Mm.
you're actually pulling across the high agent duration.
Yeah. Okay, so it makes sense to have those values at the top all to be equal, or for the purpose of this.
I think if you're going to
I think
drag
you
it
want the
across,
options, don't you?
I think what you're doing is visually, the way you described it was you're looking for what was it, low duration, I think you said. But as you pull across, that's not what you get.
Mm.
You actually get high duration on the other axes as you go to the right, because it changes scale. So I think maybe there needs to be a configuration option, which is you can just pull the pattern across, because that might be something just like say, let's just see what it looks like.
Mm.
But I think if you want to try and explore a portion of the data set, so to show me the lower quartile range, or show me the average or something, then you might want to select that, and as you drag it across, you're still looking for those things, but it readjusts. But I think also what you need to do is you need to rescale it, so it just shows the data set that you've brought across as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if it was all on the right scale and everything, you'd see worth in actually doing that translation, kind of moving it across and investigating it like
But
that.
well, if it's on the right scale,
Yeah.
it depends what you mean by the right scale. If we just move the distribution so that
Yeah.
so it moves up,
It's all-
then
it's all spread out,
It's
yeah.
not normalised, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's because the duration, the scales will still be different. So if your objective is to say, show me the data that all fits in, I don't know, the 25% quartile or below, then that scale isn't really the important factor. It's
So-
what does 25% of that data set look like?
Okay, so we actually have later on, well, in a few examples time, I'm going to show you our automated scaling features, where you can say, well, actually scale the upper and lower standard deviations of the data.
Yeah.
So would that then be helpful if we do something similar? And then if
Yeah, I think so. I think if you're asking specifically about that feature, I think its value increases if you're really saying, I just want to explore. I suppose you articulated at the start, if I'm just looking for low durations in all those other parameters really quickly moving across,
Mm.
then it has to be based on some sort of parameter that says what is that low duration. So if you select that on the first thing,
Mm.
and that represents 25% of the data, for example,
Yeah.
then the next axis when you move across, it has to have some sort
The
of
same
distribution.
25%,
Yeah.
yes.
I think it's slightly different. I think there's another option. One is the absolute scale, the matching scale. So if you select from, let's say, 5 to 10 minutes scale on one axis, when you drag it across, what you get is the same 5 to 10 minute scale, regardless of what percentile falls in that range.
Mm.
Or you carry the percentile range
Yeah.
across the proportion that you're bringing in focus.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
matches that upper and lower.
So the absolute value or the normalized
So this-
value you have.
There's not
Yeah.
the capability of both, you can use both.
Yeah.
So the reason why I've chosen these upper values there at the moment is because that's just it covers most of the data. So if you go any further, it's going to be white space.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why I've chosen those.
Yeah. So yeah, I
It's been
think
changed.
it's good,
Mm.
but I think for me, around the use case of it,
Yeah.
if you want to just drag it across,
Mm.
then there has to be something that kind of responds to the fact that you're dragging it across a completely different distribution and scale.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Otherwise, there isn't really I'm not quite sure why you would just drag it across, if that makes sense.
Mm.
So maybe you have to set a configuration or a parameter or a value that you wanted to scale across, keeping hold of that kind of parameter as the start, as the
You need to consider the types of data you're looking at as well, because okay, we've got durations there, but if you go along to count of events, then you
Yes,
compare
yeah,
to
it's
different
different.
things.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah.
So we've to be honest, the counts we've largely in the original paper, it's still in the software, but we haven't really included the counts in the revision for the screenshots, purely because so IVR count, for example, every single record has 2, doesn't it? Have you noticed that? there's two records of IVR, 2 or 1, remember?
It should be one, but
There's one.
there might be
Is
spare
it one? Maybe is there one? And then the queue has 2. I can't remember. Basically, there's I don't know if it's but basically it's not overly interesting because if the upper limit is 10, the vast majority are going to be very low number of events. So the data doesn't really show you all that much. And brushing on that scale that is a much smaller scale is more difficult and doesn't look as good.
But even still with your interval data, you can still represent a function of the distribution as the parameter that you bring across, because it's still got distribution shape to it, hasn't it, really?
Yeah.
Even if it is not continuous data, it can still bring something across.
So here, for example, when I go to school, you can see that just about at the edge there, you can see that's the distribution coming out from there. But if you were to brush here, you'd see the distributions of each one. So that's translation data. This next one is the so that's sort of that there is sort of the higher order brushing aspect of the paper. This is just the quick one of showing brushing between. So this is the ability to place multiple brushes on the same axis, and you can either say I want to see between these 2 points to sort of enlarge the glyph, or saying I want things that pass through either point. So I press OR here, so this goes through. So any point that goes through either this one or this one will be in focus. So we've actually it's an interesting thing we have here in that I suppose it possibly makes sense. We're now using we've got a feature where if you mouse over an axis, it'll colour by that axis. So the colour will change. The colour map will change according to data on that axis, as well as prioritise calls that go of the sort of the upper level, so the higher range. So I mouse over IVR. The highest level of the highest duration IVR calls will be drawn last. So you'll see what I mean here. I'll move over here. There we go. Pause that. So these are essentially all of this cluster of calls you can see now visualised all around here and where they go. You can see that a few of them do come up high IVR to high agent. If you mouse over weight duration, you can see the path that's what the gene is taken. So there are no high weight duration and high agent duration. None of them follow that path, which is interesting. They will all have a
Just go back a frame. So this probably goes back to what I was describing. That's probably what you meant before. As you said, you can see some things going to agent duration. What would be, when you highlight, it'd be good to soften or make it a bit more transparent, the lines that are not highlighted. Or maybe it's just a colouring thing, but when you flick to the other view, it's really obvious. But as you described it there, I wasn't 100% sure whether, because there might be some lines that go through weight duration, but because they're so faint, I don't know whether it may or may not be there, if that makes sense. So,
yes. So
I think at that point you're going to highlight something. It might be better to make the rest a bit more transparent, so it's really obvious where those data points go, or just to remove them altogether.
So you can. So here we can. So if you want to brush at that point, you can brush at that point, and you can then see. So that this feature is to keep that background data, so you can see it. Because the alternative, you can brush it and then put the other side as context, not focus, which is an option. But the point here is just you can keep all of it as focus, but it's a little bit more focus spent on this. So you are right in that you can't really see. In reality, there are no lines going between this point and this point, so you know that there isn't. There's nothing travelling from high IVR duration to high weight duration.
Unless it's exactly hidden behind that
Hidden
line.
behind that line.
Which is probably not possible.
No. Well, I suppose it is, but yeah.
I think just adding that option of don't show me anything that I haven't selected, but then the ability to maybe unclick it and then show me everything again. Otherwise, that's just an option you get when you click on it.
So at this point we have selected it in that we've selected here, 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 and here, and then the bottom line as well. So if we weren't to have selected this top line we just did here and here down the bottom, then this data up here would theoretically be in.
That's what I'm saying. But then what you really want is the ability to say. So when you flick between those two, that makes sense because you're trying to you actually found something insightful, which is that on the weight duration one.
Yeah.
Nothing's going through IVR or agent duration on the same triangle kind of
Yeah.
height. But what you'd want to do without deselecting your points, because you want to keep those points
Yeah.
to
You want to be able to put the other into
because the
focus.
third thing I'd want to do is click on the other point as well to see what that looks like. But you might just want that. What you don't want to do is deselect the points,
And then lose this.
and
Okay.
then lose where
So it's
you're at,
almost like
and
a
then have to
secondary,
deselect the points.
a secondary focus. So because everything currently is technically in focus here.
Yeah.
So you want a second one to be able to say actually just these one.
Yeah, just
everything
show
else
me
will
them
be-
and remove everything else, just so I can see, because there might be some interesting patterns somewhere that I can't quite see because just the drawings of the lines are hiding it for me at the moment.
So
But you don't want to lose the parameters you've already selected, so you want to be able to refocus and then select another point on the line and then defocus again, if that makes sense.
So that's, I mean, that's what the way we've approached that previously. So we didn't have this secondary focus of putting everything else into context. We have this idea of we're drawing these yellow, because it's the yellow lines here.
Yeah.
We're drawing them on top. So you're never going to draw over. So at this point, you're never going to have any yellow lines down here that are being drawn over, because these yellow lines are being drawn last. So that's sort of how we've because we did identify that as an issue. And that's how, with the big data, we've identified it. So you're right in that it is more complicated with all the data there. But yeah, we've approached it by what we call the priority rendering feature. Yeah, but that is an interesting feature there, if you could turn the rest into context as an option. So there's the final one there for an agent duration, so you can follow the path around and see that there's some high IVR, mostly low IVR, but to back up the previous one, there's no high weight duration there. So one's and then this is called, yeah. So that's just the sort of the and/or brushing. That's one of the features that we actually added in very early. That we just have an example.
So do you guys think this idea of combining two brushes, so Rich just showed a demo of combining two brushes using a logical OR. So saying, show me the polylines that pass through this filter and or this filter. Like, do you think that could be a useful feature?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
This is just basically we were trying to come up with examples that showed this could be useful, like having an OR feature. So we discussed the features back in Swansea, like, oh, what about this feature? And then we have to come up with some example that says, oh, here's a case where we think it could be useful. Look, we can use this combination of OR brushes to notice there are no calls that go directly from high weight duration directly to high agent duration.
Yeah.
You know, it's a strange pattern.
I think what would make that a little bit more useful, I don't know whether it does it now, is if with the points you select, can you then also create that as a range rather than just a point? You know, when it's doing a single brush, you have the ability to select the range. Could you?
It was.
I'm not sure if it is. I can see that there.
Yes, this is a range. Yes,
It's a range as well.
You can sort of make the range much bigger, much smaller. It does work like that.
So you could just say, rather than just say this point or that point, you could say this range. Or
Yes,
that range.
that's how it works. Yeah.
Okay, well that's it. Okay.
Yes, that's what that's actually what
That's how it's implemented.
Yeah.
So we kept it the same, just to sort of for consistency. I appreciate it's probably not consistency because these ranges aren't the same.
So
but
didn't we have like a visual thing that showed the range we selected?
yes, so there is a user option we can add those tolerances in, so you can see that. For the video I haven't, because it does obscure the data a little bit. I found that
Okay.
having that in, you can't really see. You can't overly see.
That's what it's doing now. You just
Yeah.
okay.
And,
Visual.
and you can see the upper and lower ranges here. They're all the same size. I haven't moved them at all. Where purely from where the data is brushed, you can see the upper and lower ranges. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's useful. If you're looking at your short and long calls at the same time, you're looking at your outer normal calls, you can look at them both at the same time. Did you consider having sort of the opposite of a selection, so like the not of what you've got selected, so you can switch between what you've got selected and what's not selected?
I can't remember, because I was discussing that before. And I can't
Have you
remember
done
if it's
it?
something
Yeah.
we did. It might be a user option that we've never used. probably not tested since it was first made. So.
The thing that'd be useful as well, my thinking is it possible then to compare some of the summary statistics between those two selected data points?
In what way?
So really,
Have you seen it?
where I see that being useful is what we're trying to do is look at, you might look at, for example, really good experiences versus really bad. And then what you just want to know is give me some summary statistics of each of the data points maybe, and what's the differences between them. So it might be that, just something that gives us some absolute numbers to say, if you look at high IVR duration versus low, there might be something, I'm trying to think now, for each parameter or each axis, there might be just be summary stats to say the difference between these two ranges or what this equates to.
That is a user
Yeah.
option now, so you can add, we have a user option that says turn on the labels, and it shows you the exact values of all the internal ranges and the polylines and the quantities.
Are you
that
thinking
correspond.
more statistics for all the calls in that
I'm just thinking, really, one of the things we always have is, or you probably always want to do is you find something that's good and find something that's bad, and you just want to understand the difference between the two. What's the big drivers between it? So you might look at high IVR duration, low IVR duration, but the thing you're really looking at, what's that relate to in terms of overall AHT difference? So it might be you're looking at all the journeys that go through high IVR, and you get like a value of AHT of all the journeys that fit within that upper range. And then you look at the lower range and then you get all the values of AHT. So it might be any parameter, but I'm just taking AHT as an example. And you might just want to know between those two ranges, the difference in AHT overall is 60 seconds, for example, I don't know. And it might just be that's all explained by the IVR duration, but there might be something else that contributes. But there might be other statistics that you want to compare.
I think the other thing that would be useful to see is, for example, where the high IVR time is a breakdown of what IVR exit they correspond with. So you can see that the lion's share of that is all for a particular IVR exit. It points you straight to a problem straight away with where you need to go. Because that dimension, that
I'd imagine you could
context,
bring that in as an extra axis that could be like just labels of data that you can stick on there, isn't it? It's like IVR exit reason could be an axis.
IVR exit, you said?
Yeah.
What is IVR
It's
exit?
like an IVR exit code.
IVR exit
it's
code?
like a label.
Yeah, so that should describe roughly what the customer's calling about, because the idea of an IVR is for you to tell us what you want, and then we use that information to then get you to the right agent. So the exit code, you might not, I don't think you've got the labels, but if you did, then I might explain this is a sales-related call, or a customer's trying to get through to the complaints department.
Like
And then you could have that as kind of as just category data at the end. And like Tony's just said, as you go on that, it might then, you see the lines drawing into the different reason codes, and that might give you an idea of what most people in that region are calling about.
I think when we last looked at it, you didn't have the ability to load up categories in there. Is that still the case?
So when you say categories, in what way?
As the guys were just saying, that our IVR exit point is skill, those sorts of data types.
Yeah, so in this one it's still the case. I plan very much in the next one it's going to be just generic. You can whatever you want to put in. It's going to be
So
that's just useful.
That's just as useful, yeah. What skill do those high IVR duration calls end up at? And then you just have the category data with all the agent skill sets that these calls mean. I think you see big influx into complaints or something like that.
So where we saw before the low talk time or high hold time, when we were saying that could be agent behaviour, it'd be great to be able to just click something and see who are the agents for this small subset of calls we've selected, who are the agents, and if lo and behold 80% of them are Richard, then Richard gets kicked. So
it's almost being able to see that, and that's what it's almost a useful brushing to be able to, rather than to be able to just draw a circle around a subset of calls and then go into almost a new visualization method, or it doesn't have to be, it's just a reporting tool that you can just say, based off what I've currently selected, I want to know more about it.
We talked about, I do remember now the session. I'm sure we talked about just the ability to swap an axis with another one. So an example, you might, because if you find something of interest, you might think, right, I've only got 3 parameters on each axis that I'm interested in. The other three are just redundant because I need to explore this particular thing in more detail. And as Tony's just described, what you might do at that point is I don't know whether you've still got like options for the other axes here somewhere. You might just snap in
Different one.
or deselect some of these ones. Say, I don't need that one, I don't need that one, I don't need that one. And you might bring in agent, ID, exit, reason, and there might be something else you want to bring in. And by doing that, you actually then give context to what you found because you're looking at it from effectively a different dimension.
Yeah.
And that dimension might actually give you the answer. All of a sudden, you find, like Tony just said, all these people are based in the outsourced contact centre.
Yes.
Or all these people are all based in Sheffield. There's other dimensions of information that we've got that might give you the context to say, actually, this problem's isolated into a particular value. And that's where I think one of the things we talked about was from a clustering perspective as well. Is there something, maybe you can't do it in this, but there might be something you want to recommend. I don't know, maybe you can't do it, maybe it's too advanced. But I was just thinking, there might be a data set or a value that, maybe this is back to the clustering discussion before, that actually you've not got displayed in your visualization, but it has a really high, strong relationship of some sort. And you almost need that prompt to the same. Bring in agent name, because there's a relationship in there that you're not seeing because you haven't brought it into your visualization. But that's probably beyond what this tool's really meant to do.
Well, yeah. Well, at the moment, sort of any major modifications are very fairly difficult. This is the sort of the final feedback session, hopefully. But I can see why that's useful, especially for feedback for the next one. I appreciate that's definitely a very useful thing to have. I definitely plan to build the next one to be a lot more as well. The next one I really wanted to be so late in the game of building the software can be complete, and you can go, actually, I want to look into bits, and it just be able to do it. So I understand a lot more now that it is.
I think in the absence of the last thing I said, if you just have the ability to swap axes and then do that manual, right, let me just see what happens when I bring these other three parameters
so you can swap axes and that you can
and if that feature exists, then that is just as good because you're just using your own intuition and saying, what happens if I bring this data in? So I don't need these three values, these three axes anymore.
Yes, so you can, while the software's being used, you can go into it and just change the axes that are currently in there. You can swap one out in you remove one and add another one in. So that's something you can do.
So for me, that's quite valuable feature because what that's really kind of expanding is your ability on the fly to just follow the visualization and what it's trying to describe without really knowing what the story is or the reason for it. You've got that ability to not be hamstrung by, I can't actually change anything I've got. The ability to just snap in and out through other axes might then uncover the root cause. And for me, that's the value. It's not just finding a pattern, it's trying to find, actually it's isolated to the Sheffield site, or there's only one agent that seems to be having this same behaviour. Right, all we've got to do is find that agent and we won't have that problem again. Without that context of bringing other dimensions in, then you kind of, all you got is, a bit like what I described, you've just got insight without some sort of context as to what you need to do action-wise then.
So what we currently have in terms of, when you say snap back new axes in, so we can, there's nothing loading data in, let's say I want to add in, sort of cost prices, and if the data isn't going to do the same thing, and it'll just add them in, or I can remove some. But in terms of currently, we have this list, and there's no more than that. So the next one I want to be able to have, because what we did when we went through, when we built this, we went through and picked all the ones that we thought were the most useful. But obviously, as it turns out, there's so many variables, it's quite overwhelming. It's difficult to know what's valuable and what's not. But it's funny to see that there is a lot more. There's a lot more very important variables in that. There is sort of not redundant, but some are just flags for things that. Certain flags for certain things that are almost irrelevant to the visualization aspect of the project. But things like numerical codes to see the exit point of the IVR. Because we don't have the context for those, we just have they're just a bunch of numbers. We don't have the information to see what department that is.
Yeah, but that's the thing. You don't need to know.
Yeah.
That's the point, isn't it? You don't need to know. The visualization will point the end users to the SME to something that's happening.
Yeah.
And then it's their job to interpret it into something. The visualization's job is not necessarily to interpret it. users, so you don't need to know, you just need to put all the codes and you can cover the GUC to anyone.
Yeah.
Because as long as you can snap it in, that kind of points to something.
Yes.
Somebody somewhere will know the answer. What does that actually mean?
Yes. Right. Sorry. Just a few more examples now. So this is showing that brush. I don't know if you remember the brush glyph that we had. So this is demonstrating sort of the value of this glyph. So if you look at this, this glyph, I don't know if you remember, it shows where at each sort of these intervals between the brush, it aggregates the data and shows the average angle. So data between this point here and this point here, average the angles in this direction. So at the moment, you can see all of these, every single one of them points roughly upwards. So at this point, lines trend upwards in general. The larger blocks are the ones with the more lines, and the stronger the correlation. So weight duration actually correlates higher to a higher point in whole duration. Obviously, these scales are different. But if we move it upwards, we can drag it to the top here, and we can see that they largely point downwards. It's a lot more of a mess because the data is there's not as much data there. If we drag to the middle, actually these bottom ones, these top bars are pointing down, and these bottom ones are pointing up. So for this scale on the right hand side, you can see this is the crossover point in which medium, weight duration, the lower weight durations points to a higher whole duration, and the higher weight durations point to a lower whole duration, if that makes any sense. So it's all working out the crossover point in the data. So that's sort of the point of it. Well, it's just an example of what the brush glyph does. It sort of shows where the data tends to fall. So this is again. But we've shown you the brush glyph before. It's sort of just a way of aggregating the data in a way you can see it without this sort of the way that the data is very sort of occluded with all these lines. We see where it all goes, but the brush glyph sort of summarises it for you. Go over it really, it depends on the video. So what do you think in general about this brush glyph?
There are also arrows on the top
Yes.
and the bottom of the intervals. So if there's a big arrow, it means there are lots of polylines intersecting the axis below the glyph, and if it's small, it means there are very few. So it's mapped. The size of the arrow is mapped to the number of polylines above and below the interval.
So if you were to mouse over the left over here, the arrow would be about equal up and down at this point. But on all these axes, because all this distribution is down the bottom, the arrow will almost always point.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that's making it hard to interpret, is because the distribution's at the bottom. That's probably the bit you'd want to be exploring with this feature, I think, is back to this scale of show me all the distribution and get rid of the outliers and the lower values. That's the bit where it probably makes more sense.
So if we were to be looking at the lower ranges, then what would see there'd be if you
A sort of a Pareto, or sort of an 80% by distribution clicker, would, for want of a better phrase, would be useful. Something that just says that instead of showing me the true distribution, just show me where the 80% is and spread that across the axes. Deliberately leave out the outliers, so that you've got the bulk of the data you want to see spread out more on the scale.
Okay, this is good because we're leaning into, we've mentioned that sort of thing a few times, and that's the last example, and that's the thing we need to get feedback on really, is our automated features where you can just sort of.
Yeah, we have, it's called dimensional zooming. You just choose whatever subset you want, and the axis will scale to that subset. There's a manual dimensional zooming, and then there's automatic dimensional zooming.
Okay, so let's go to. At the moment, there's a lot to handle. Yes, at the moment, we've changed that to scale since the video was made. So it's difficult to scale you can see that that's updated there, the aberration. Let's see how this. So even then, you can see this wait duration. This is 2 minutes, and the vast majority wait for that long. It's not 0. So I don't know what that is.
No, mate. On the basis that if they're trying to answer calls within 20 and 30 seconds, you'd probably typically expect to see a wait duration distribution that looks like that, really.
Okay.
So that's pretty reasonable.
Features of. The upper and lower bands of this mouse over here. So this is, yeah, so the upper band of that is 10 seconds, and the lower band of that is, looks like it's like 2 seconds, again 3 seconds, 9 seconds. So that's the range that we have there. So you can see all of our, actually you can look over and see some of the upper and lower bands. So the IVR actually, then, so if we look here, yeah, so most people tend to be done with the IVR within 3 minutes.
It's very long,
Or 2.5. So what we have, let's see. So if we were to, so if we were to see the glyph now, let's apply a glyph here. Now it's in the lower ranges. You can see exactly what happens there. It's interesting, you can see, because the distribution, the way that the glyph looks often follows the distribution. You see that they're very, very heavily there. So high IVR durations. So there tends to be, by the looks of things, the way these arrows are pointing, these vertical histograms, they tend to be pointing to, because that is pointing almost down a little bit, that's horizontal, up a little bit, up a little bit. So it seems to be something around here on the axis it tends to be going to.
What's interesting about that?
I don't know why, but yeah.
If I look at
It looks like a lot's
the
going down there.
intensity, it looks like it's all going that way.
Well, that seems interesting. I don't know why that's the case.
That feels like
There's no reason really why a long duration of IVR should result in a high wait duration. They're largely independent of one another, I'd say.
Okay.
Well, it depends, because I was just thinking if they haven't verified in the IVR, no, but wouldn't it have duration?
If you move the agent
Not
duration,
really.
it's the same.
I mean, there might be instances where what they're trying to do in the IVR is a rare thing, not a common thing, and so the number of agents who they've got who can support that are fewer, and therefore you keep it longer from typically. But
Let's see what happens if we brush here. Yeah, so you see the majority of calls. So this shows very heavily the majority here. Most fall. Well, then, yeah, this one works, and it shows everything's falling.
I mean, what, I don't know whether it does this now, but when you got the big red thick line, as opposed to the blue and white one, that, I know whether this is interactive. Is that red line interactive?
In what way? Is it, I can move that up and down. I can.
I mean, if you clicked on it, what would be useful? Like, you know, rather than the line itself, if you clicked on the bits that come out,
Yeah.
if it then showed you
Trajectory.
where
Oh, okay.
you go.
Where it falls, that would be
Yeah.
interesting.
So obviously what you're showing is general direction for most of them, and obviously how many of them there are, but what you're not showing is how they're spread out.
Yeah.
So it just made, if you were able to click on this and it just kind of summarised roughly where they are, you probably see some of these somewhere, I'd imagine,
Yeah.
because obviously that's just, I don't know if that's the average, but it's just.
Yes, that is the average, so it will be a wide separation.
So what you want to see is the distribution, because the average might not be representative of the distribution.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, so yeah, it's massive that to be able to just draw lines to be where.
Yeah, because what you might have is loads going to the bottom, loads going to the top, but the average suggests in the middle, which then distorts
Yeah.
the reality where the course is going to.
Yeah. Huh.
Interestingly enough, we do have that feature in a previous version of the software. Yeah, from a previous students. His name is Zhao Gao.
Yeah.
We have that exact feature. Yeah.
As you can see the arrows here, that obviously there are more calls above that line than below the line, which is interesting at this point, the weight duration.
When you say above the line,
So above the range, so
the range,
because the majority of calls here fall within it,
yeah.
this arrow here is just everything below the range of the brush.
Yeah.
There's more actually above the range of the brush than there is below.
Yeah.
In reality, there's a lot more within this range of the brush because that's it. But it's just saying what's above and below.
The other thing I actually want to do from this as well is, a bit like I was saying before, so you select it, would be to select more than one of those bars
Yeah.
and then convert that into the range I want to use maybe. So you might say just click on them two,
Mm.
and then what that might do is automatically then create the range of interest.
Interesting. So
Because-
like, what to scale the axis? Just to scale the.
Not necessarily to scale the axis, just to you know, like on the previous
Oh,
ones you
filter.
had with the parameter.
Yeah.
It might be then that becomes a way of creating the filters. So, okay, I found these two, these obviously stand out. Let me select them two, but I don't know what the range is because I don't know, are these representative of the actual units on this range? The width, the height.
The height is just it's I think it's I can't remember what it is. It is just that however many there are.
So it's not representative of the.
It's not like 5 seconds or anything. It's not standard.
So that one might be might be 0 to 5, 5
Mm.
to 10. That one might be 10 to 20.
No, they're the same size. So each one is the same size,
Same range.
the same range, but depending on the size of the brush,
Yeah.
they might be different.
They're like a tenth of whatever
Yeah,
you've selected.
yeah. It's like it's that sort of thing.
But yeah, I mean, actually, what I'd want to do is click on those two, and then convert that into brush.
Actually, brush based off that. Okay.
I think what would be useful is when you've selected the range like that, to be able to click somewhere above or below or whatever, you'd probably tell me it's already in, where it snaps that to use the whole space of the
This whole range. So we have, we do have that. Actually, I think that was just last episode. We do have that. That's something we've had for a while. And if you want to apply a brush.
Do you want to show any more of the example videos?
Yes, I will. Yeah, I'll go back. This bit isn't in there. So say we want to scale the brush type application. So say I want to scale the axis here. I haven't tested this in a very long time, so I have no idea what's going to happen. I can click on that there, and it'll scale the axis to that range.
Yeah, that's
So that's something we have built
useful, I
in.
think.
And I don't know why I forgot that feature was in there, to be honest, because that would be far more useful in a lot of cases with scaling. Yeah, so it's nice to be able to. I tell you what I've done. Scrolling, one of the fun things I found was actually like on this, and I updated it and I just lost it. When I pull from Git, then I think that was the thing I'd adjusted. That's the thing I removed. Yeah, so you can do that. So if I reset the filter, and I want to see. Scale it so that I just see the very low durations.
Because you know, for something like that, like duration, you might say you might want to have an interest in looking at all the calls that were answered in service level, let's say, within 30 seconds. So
Yeah.
in that case, if you're looking for something specific, that's all you'd be interested in. So you'd want to see that expanded out to the full scale, probably.
Yeah. Yes, that's interesting. Okay, so let's have a look. That's file 2. What's this one? I don't want to write that. Oh, is this the automatic axis scaling? Okay.
That's what we use.
Yeah, so that's what so yeah, we're discussing. So we essentially can, so if we go back here, so we've got these axes here, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one selected. What we're doing is we're saying, why have I not shown, I'll just go to, I will show the video, I'll show you the, in real life, reset filter. Okay, so let's go to show the mean here. That's the mean line, that is one standard deviation. It's about to appear, and it's crashed, of course. Classic live demo. Runs for too long due to many things. So essentially, it's a way of you have these brush lines that can appear. Should I show you this one? It's basically a way of saying, so one standard deviation from the mean, two standard deviations from the mean, I want to apply an axis scale to that. So what we'll see now is when this scales, you can see, so it's all 0 minutes at the bottom, and then at the top it is essentially the upper range is going to be, I think this one might be 2 standard deviations from the mean. I'm pretty sure I've written it down in the video. So this is, whilst it doesn't, it's all very standardized in that this is automatically calculated. You have the majority of the data showing now. So what I'm doing here is I'm mousing over. This is the automatic mouse over where I can then move my mouse over and see colour each axis by colour the whole plot by whatever the axis I'm currently mousing over. So currently you can see the wait time being prioritised, and it's going to be high wait time duration prioritised. So all those red lines are drawn last. So this is the majority of the data is still in there, but it's within 2 standard deviations.
It's interesting that because the high weight ones tended to have high customer effort, which is what you would expect.
Yes. So actually, it is an interesting one. This is Net Promoter Score. So the red path here is actually all the very high Net Promoter Scores. What's interesting is that, and it probably stands to reason, because most of the calls fall within this range, and the upper range is still only 7 minutes. But actually, there are very few, you can see very much that the trend is upwards. So as you have previously said, you're never going to have, or you're rarely going to have someone that's going to respond nicely. So even you can see this sort of colour. I know it doesn't fit perfectly because the orange blue, but that sort of colour is here. So there's a few people who have had very low contact time with the agent, who have responded with a 1 or a 0, whatever that is, but very few who have had who have responded 10 with that sort of low time with the agent. And it stands to reason, but it's sort of reinforcing that. Same with total duration in general. So this is 21 minutes. So the majority here, you can see that all the happy people fall within this range. But we've created this range from that automatic saying, I want to see all calls that fall within the standard deviation of the average.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that as a feature, as a automating the scaling?
It automates 2 processes, right? It automates the higher order brushing. So it just says create a brush automatically. We call it auto-complete brushing. So instead of drawing it out. So it will draw the mean brush, and then you choose whatever you want to do the scaling by, the first standard deviation, the second standard deviation. Or you can set it to say 10%. And then it just scale all the axes for us.
Yeah. That's good. I think it's less of a value-added feature. It's more you just needed to use it faster, really, in a way, because otherwise these things take a bit longer. So it's not the most amazing feature, but it's almost like an expected feature. If that makes sense, because you just otherwise you're there trying to just manipulate the data. You want to quickly go to. You do absolute ranges on this as well, so you could almost input. I know I want to do between 0 and 30 seconds, as well as just sort of saying manually input the range you want.
We should have that. Yeah, that's one of the things we should continue. So we don't have that at the moment, but
you want to be able to say your detractors on their promoter as an example. You know, specify exactly the range for them. See what the story is in relation to those.
Yeah, otherwise, it makes perfect sense, because I think you need it to be able to navigate the data files.
especially as it's so dense down the bottom.
I think the only thing that is probably there somewhere is, maybe it's not part of what you're trying to show, but I think that focus, defocus kind of aspect of, I know you've got your red lines, and you're highlighting blue lines before. So one of the things I'd want to do is just look at the one that's 0 or 1 at the bottom.
Yeah.
Just show me what those lines look like, because obviously the colours are so close that it's hard to
Yeah.
differentiate them.
Just thinking back to the specifying absolute numbers, is there like a snap to option with the filters where you could get it to jump snap to the nearest minute sort of thing, for durations for example?
So we have that at the bottom ranges. So for 0, I have that. I don't have sort of the nearest minutes, but so yeah. So yeah, as you say, yeah, it's necessary given the current distribution of the data. Yeah, given the current distribution, yeah, we do need to be able to accurately and repeatedly sort of be able to just sort of draw a line here and say I want to see sort of the low values. So if we go back onto show me.
We also thought it might be useful somebody for the so-called new user that says, I don't know how to draw a higher order brush, just do it for me.
Yeah, so we have that, so you can apply these brushes to any sort of level there. So say, let's see, let's do that now. That's the problem on this laptop. It's very much research software. So you can around here say standard deviation. And then apply to scale these. Yeah, if we can then take a look at actually interact, I'll see what happens when we can look at the net promoter score axis here. Okay, you see the distribution's changed there. Colour by so actually what I'm going to do here, I'm going to apply an axis scale, removing all the non-response. So if we prioritize by 0, there we go. So let's see now. Okay. So this is we automatically scale the duration axes to sort of just show the majority. You've got almost all the calls in there. Yeah, it's filtering out all the outliers, all the main calls in there, the typical ones are in there. But you've got the net, but here currently it's all the ones, all the responders, all the people who responded to the thing.
Why does, is it just me, I'm misreading it, on the total duration axes,
Yep.
the distribution doesn't feel like it reflects?
So it's because there's a filter. So what we've done is because we've applied a filter to the net promoter score axis, is it? Yeah. So we've applied one there. This is, so it's saying that if this were the only filter to be applied, this all the calls would lie here. But because we've applied all these other filters, it's sort of showing how it differentiates. So for example here as well, it looks like it sort of there's a bump there. But because we applied these other filters, it sort of changes what.
I think there was a value before -1 was the net promoter score, which
Yeah.
was like the no score, no
Did
response,
no response, yeah.
which is 96%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've taken out the majority of the data, but this is all stuff where
So the
we have-
distribution isn't reflecting the line you can see
Yeah.
necessarily.
So yeah, no, it's not the lines you can see, it's just, so say if we were to remove the scale here, the scale here, the scale here, and the scale here, then it would adhere perfectly to that then. Yeah, so it's just a way of looking, so I've prioritised it by that. You can see the blues clustering around there a lot. If I prioritise by the top, this changes. Looks very similar actually, that's interesting. I suppose that does suggest that there's a bit more, among the I suppose it shows that the red here is a more overwhelming colour because we're currently prioritising by blue. And you can still see a lot of red, but when you prioritise by red, you can't see a lot of the blue. But it does show, I suppose this does show that it's more difficult to predict higher net promoter score, high or low net promoter score based off any of these variables. because there's not an obvious correlation among the average call, the typical call, where you call up. I would imagine the changes here, what causes a high or low net promoter score is what happens within the call, like whether or not they solve the problem, not any of the time metrics.
Yeah, if you're on the call for a long time and it's a difficult call, but actually you get a free phone at the end of it, you're probably quite happy with your
Yes,
survey.
exactly. And at the same time, if you spend a long time on the and you don't get anything resolved, you're more likely to be unhappy.
Yeah.
But I suppose when we talk about low duration, whatever happens, like the duration is, it can go one way or the other quite easily, because it could be a low duration because they just haven't solved your problem, they can't. Or it could be a low duration because they solve it more quickly. So I suppose it's not these ones that it makes it more difficult to predict in these ranges, because I suppose you've got less to go on. Yeah, so that's the automatic axis scaling. Then the final one I'm going to show you is the automatic brush. So this is just an example here of yeah, so we've got some scale applied here. I think it's an automatic scale where we can see a good distribution. And we want to apply brushes here. It's just being able to see to one standard deviation. There's 3 axes we have selected in the middle. Now we've applied the brush there. So you can see the arrows where the data falls. Yeah, so that's what we currently have. So these automated features then, you said they're sort of a necessity, they're sort of expected to have them there. What do you do you have any other thoughts on sort of being able to automate the brush application? Which is better? Is it better to automate the scale? Better to automate the brush? What would you rather?
We say automate the brush.
So here we've got these brushes here have been applied automatically.
But the scale stayed the
So
same.
the scale has stayed the same.
So white space around.
So we could have so the same way we've just been a separate button to have scaled the axis by this one standard deviation, or we could just apply the brush to these, and it keeps the scale the same.
I think you want the ability to choose.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Give me all the options.
Yeah, because if you make a selection and the scale, you're looking at, say, agent, well, any of those 3 that you select, the scaling isn't too bad. You might just be happy to look at it like that. If you select it and the scale's actually rolling right down at the bottom, you probably want to expand it and rescale it.
Yeah.
It becomes more of a question of what your default is for your automatic, isn't it? But you've still got the option of change.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Right. Yeah. Sorry, I had to go through all that again. Just apologise about that.
I'm seeing it for the first time.
It's good to see it again.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
So it's been a while.
Yeah, that's yeah. I suppose that's been. It's a shame that's how academia works, isn't it? That it was so close to getting in. Feedback was all very positive, and just because it isn't, you have to spend another number of months on it, which is such a shame. That's how it works. But I think it's a better paper now than it was previously, and the software's better. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the feedback was good. It was our fault. Previously, we didn't go through this one. It was just here's the software.
Have we given enough detail that you need, or do we need to go back and
You can go.
I don't know.
The main feedback we needed was on the automated section. That's the one that we needed the main bit of feedback on. So sort of just be able to sort of.
Gary, you said something like, "Oh, you would expect those automated features already." Why would you expect those?
just because they're almost pre-configured views, if that's the right terminology. You always say, I don't know what I'm looking. For me, with this tool, where it falls in is it's an investigative tool, which is I don't really know anything about the data, and I need to figure out and find some patterns that warrant further investigation. So for me, there's 2 approaches from the outset you take. You just visually look at the data and just play around with it, change some parameters, which is probably the manual equivalent. the other thing is I don't really know anything about it, but what I'll do is I'll just go to some kind of preset views, i.e. let me just look at the mean, let me now look at one standard deviation. So they're not things that's rocket science, it's just some standard off the shelf almost parameters and setups that just get me going without, as an alternative to just eyeballing the data and using that as the guide. Give me some statistical kind of parameters and references as the starting point, and then I'll do some manual stuff and eyeball it. So it's just an alternative way.
Yeah.
So for me, that's why it feels like it should be there, just because you need an alternative to just eyeball. You need something more statistical,
Yeah.
a bit more of a reference.
And what you say, because there's a large amount of data as well, it's more difficult to eyeball when there's
Well, yeah, definitely, yeah.
exclusion.
Especially when you've got.
It's a lot.
It's hard to. It's hard, I think with the distributions either side, that helps.
Mm.
Obviously, with the number of lines being drawn, it's hard to really visually interpret that into absolute values.
Mm.
So you do need something that helps you just draw your eye to where's the majority of the data lie.
Yeah.
And I think if anything, I say kind of out of the box, I'd expect there to be other parameters as well that you use as an automated view, because just any statistical value should be the basis on which to automate and snap the data. Because all you're really using is just some pre-configured views, just to, you almost cycle through them in a way, just to say, okay, this is something in that, no, okay, let me look at another set of parameters, something in that, okay. You might just cycle through them really. So that's why I kind of say you need them as necessities, because you need some way of just providing a reference point.
Okay. Thank you. That's good feedback. Thank you.
The other thing the reviewers wanted feedback on was the learning curve for these features. Said, oh, you didn't tell us like about how difficult it is to learn these, to understand the new features and learn how to use them and so on. Do you guys have some comments on that? Did you have any trouble understanding any of the features, or do you think it would be difficult to learn how to use the software?
I think what, because obviously it's been a while since we saw it last time, I do find I spend a bit of time thinking, okay, what am I actually looking at? You have to kind of take a few seconds just to say, okay, what's on the scales, what's what? I think what might help with that might be either some pre-configured views, so maybe parameters set up and you name that report and it just kind of creates like a setup, so you know it's kind of got, like I said before, you might look for high value, low value type combos. So there might be a report that just shows show me high value, low value, and
So we actually
so
have
you know
that.
where it is without actually having to interpret, because you've clicked on it and that's the parameters it's pulled in.
Yes.
And maybe some breadcrumbs as well, like a breadcrumb type view at the top, which might just be, okay, what things have changed? Or it might be a list of all the different views you've done, because you might say, actually, I'm sure I looked at something like that before. Have I actually had those parameters up already?
Oh, interesting.
So there might
Yes,
be just like a
we-
history of things I've clicked
We
on.
theoretically have that feature because you can save.
We can save and load states, so we can have that in this. We can save a current sort of work frame
Yeah.
and then load that in.
Like, yeah, if you spend 10 minutes or 20 minutes doing exploration, you can save the parameter settings and say, oh, I found something interesting.
Yeah.
I'm saving this so I can reload it next time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that helps because you kind of help to learn by saying, okay, I know what I want, label it up, save it, I could reuse that next time, rather than you having to remember. Otherwise, I don't know whether it might be just the videos that you created, but I don't know whether there's tooltips on there or keys or values. Sometimes I struggle to see stuff, and I know some things you can click as optional, they show, and it might just be your preference, but for me, when I'm looking at that data for the first time again, I want to see the labels because I need context.
Yeah.
And obviously with the max min at the top and bottom, that's fine. But because each scale's different off the bat, my head's kind of trying to figure out what we're looking at, are they high, are they low? It takes a few seconds to work it out. So I think for me, the default view should be show all the labels, tooltips and keys whenever you're doing a video, because
Okay.
or even if you've got, I don't know whether it's in the application or not, but you might just have something that in your video just overlays to have like a key or something, I don't know. But I think for me,
That's the big
because
one.
the things I'm just thinking about is colours. It'd be good to know within the parameters I've selected, is red good or bad or high or low?
So we do have, a legend you can, it's a user option. You can,
But for me,
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's just because you're in video mode that maybe you had a smaller screen being displayed. But for me, you want to see those things at the same time to know what I'm actually looking at.
yeah. Yes. Okay. So that's. Yes, we have these things, but
Because otherwise, most of the time I spend trying to interpret it is trying to work out, is that high, is that low, what does red mean, what does blue mean, what scale am I on? A lot of things which are quite simple, if they're labelled up or displayed at the same time you're showing. And like I said, I don't know whether it's because on the video you just created the smaller screen.
yes, I just took the actual so you don't doesn't hold this information.
But for me, when you see something for the first time, you need to
You need the
you
labels.
need more.
So because we have that built into the software, I think possibly you're right in that I probably don't use it because I've used this so much that
Yeah,
it's just in the way for me. Every time I see a label, I'm like, I know what it is.
And exactly that's the point, is I'm certain when you get used to it, it's intuitive.
I was just gonna
when you've not
say,
seen it for a while,
Yeah. You need
takes
the
a while
labels.
to figure out
So we
what-
have the labels built in. So that's something that we have implemented now. So even sort of the upper and lower ranges, and sort of when you mouse over, we have that as an option now. So you're saying that because if we got those labels, and if we were to when we demonstrate, we use those labels, that would reduce the learning curve.
Yeah, because
Okay.
rather than, I guess, what do we mean by learning curve? You're talking about if you handed this software over to a brand new person, how quickly would they be able to figure out without being told what to do?
Well, not necessarily. Well, I suppose not without being told. If you could give you basic instructions, like how.
Are we judging it on the basis of how intuitive it is to use? Is that what we mean by learning curve?
Well, I think basically they were saying that one of the reviewers was saying I think they wanted a proper study to be done to show how, in comparison to the alternative methods of visualizing the data with parallel coordinates, like how easy it is to use. So whereas previously with other methods, I don't know if you've got it.
So comparing it to alternative methods that are not this visualization, how easy is it to use?
Yes,
faster
essentially.
to get to the same end result.
Yeah. So what we say is we've got this sketch brush where you can click, and
Yeah.
that'll happen. Whereas the alternative, I don't have the software on here, I thought I did, where it's almost a net. We have to drag the upper and lower bands, and each one is a click and a drag, click and a drag, click and a drag each one. So and rather than laying out this sketch, but I think that they were saying that they wanted to see get us to prove that the time, the sort of the overhead of learning how to use it is beneficial. You actually once you've learned it, if you put both people to start at the same time, the output would be better from this one.
But not compared to previous versions of it.
Previous versions of this software, or previous
Of your software.
not previous versions of my software.
It wasn't about comparing new features to say, is the learning curve for this new feature better than it was in the previous versions?
It's saying that.
What we comparing against?
So what I've currently made, so this software against generic parallel coordinate software, I think.
Alright.
Yeah, we'll compare it to one called XMDV. You might have come across it in your travels.
But that's obviously where we can't really comment,
No.
because we haven't used this data in those solutions to
Do you think that to learn these features that we showed you would be a barrier to actually using them?
well, what we can compare it to, because we did do an exercise very early on, is using just lots of visualization tools, not necessarily parallel coordinates. And I think quite quickly between all of us, we found a lot of them open source solutions and off-the-shelf ones were very difficult to get going. I think there's two barriers we found. One, getting the right format to stick it into in the first place was always a big challenge.
Yeah.
And two, once you've got it, then it wasn't always the most intuitive, because it wasn't really a proper production solution. It was something someone's built as a university project and made quickly available. But I'd definitely say, with this, it feels very end user. What's that? I can't use the wrong word.
Almost production
Useful.
quality.
Yeah, it feels much more like a
Fix it.
production solution.
Yeah.
Not experienced the process of moving it in, but since it's our data, I'd like to think it wouldn't be too hard for us to do, but maybe not. But yeah, as you're going through it, I can quite easily imagine myself doing the same things just as fast and being able to quickly get to some insight. And for me, that's probably the end user
Yeah.
kind of scale of how quickly can I go from knowing nothing to knowing something using this tool. And I think that's probably quite a high score, high being good.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
I don't really need the key or a scale, but it'd be quite high. It'd be out of 10, kind of 8, 9s, which for me, for this type of technology and visualization, I think that's probably good,
Okay.
if not better.
I think everything you said about losing track of bits during the video was, I agree.
Yeah.
But if I was driving it, it wouldn't take me long to be able to figure it out, because I'd know exactly what I'd done, I'd know what data I had,
That's true.
I'd have,
It's easy
That's
to
why.
follow us when you-
That's why I think what you need just to complement that is just the history of what you've done.
Mm-hmm.
Because you might say, actually, I found something really interesting about 6 clicks ago,
yeah.
or 6 parameters, or 3 reports, wherever the terminology is. I did something
Yeah.
about half an hour ago. I think I found something there that I've actually just reinforced. I want to go back and look at that.
Yeah.
But obviously, if you didn't know what that was, how do you know what you're going back to? So, just the history of, I don't know what you really classify as.
Provenance.
Yeah.
Provenance information, it's just being able to save and restore what you did,
Yeah,
your
'cause-
actions.
Because there might be something that you forgot that you want to go back to, and you won't know what those parameters were or what
Yeah,
options were,
yeah.
you totally forgot.
Yeah.
The other thing, Ben, that being the breadcrumbs, if I've already selected or filtered into some things, just help me to understand that I've actually drilled into it.
Yeah.
And there's actually there's maybe some data
And
that's
with
not
that
included.
comes the ability to step back as well.
Yeah.
Step back to the previous level.
So a good example
undo
being,
the previous.
Tony's point before, if he didn't quite understand when we got rid of the non-response data, what had happened,
Yeah.
Yeah.
with a breadcrumb, or something that just says, you've just filtered all that out, and it's showing that it's filtered out
Yeah.
somewhere as a tooltip or an indicator,
Mhm.
then you probably wouldn't have asked that question. Because it wasn't that it didn't make sense when you explained it, it was when you clicked on it, you didn't know where that went.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something disappeared, but I didn't know something was left
Yeah,
over
yeah,
as
I
a
just missed it.
delta.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see where it got dropped off or what changed. It could be any of those axes that changed, but which one did?
There was no
So the
visual
axes changed colour
clue
or-
for me that had gone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what's disappeared? Because if I need to undo it, I need to know what I need to undo.
Yeah.
What's the secondary tab?
Yeah.
Another
Oh,
instance of
sorry. No, I've got so let's later and see what happens. Let's see. I think it's I did have some. I was just plotting random data to sort of see just the general distributions of things. Can't remember how I use it or yeah, it was let's see.
The other thing as well by looking that up, back to your question, how easy is the learning curve, etc.
Hmm.
For me, the other test for this would be, can you swap the data and is it still just as useful?
So it should be
You've tried that yet?
it should be entirely compatible with the data that you've given me. So I've made sure that data.
No, I mean, completely different data source. It's the heights of dogs
Yeah.
in
So
certain breed or something. I don't
this
know.
piece of software it doesn't do that. The next one very much because I've realised for all the sessions we've had, it's often been, oh, how can we change this? Or if you get a new data set, if you change the way that you make it look, like this won't work. But and I think the reason why previously we've not done that is because it does scale the size of the project up, because of having a back end to be able to just chuck any data into and for it to just implicitly know what data types and to store it in the right way. Up to the size of the project. The next one, as I've said for a while, I've got the back end mostly working now, where you should just be able to do that. And you can put in, as you say, the height of dogs or whatever you want to put in there, and it should just be able to visualise. Yeah. So that's the other one I'd like to do. Oh, there we go. There it is. Let's see what happens. What's happening?
Let's go.
Oh, go.
Yeah.
Let's go. Oh, so I've absolutely no idea what this means.
You need
Absolutely. You can see that's a very, very useful key at the top. That one there. I think I was playing about with something previously and I wanted to use.
Is that the height of dogs? They're really high when they're
This looks like it's start time, end time. Yeah, I think it's just a distribution of data on a generic axis, but without any. Yeah, that was that. Okay, I think I'm quite happy. I'm really pleased with that feedback. Thank you. I think I'm sure that's going to be enough now for us to get some good feedback.
Great.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys doing that again. It's probably the third time. I think it is the